All right, so on the left side of your navigation screen is the syllabus, and that's kind of a standalone. It doesn't hook into modules in any way. So you look at that, it gives just the overview. We did that at the first day. We did the home page the first day. And at the very bottom, student learning outcomes, here's your weekly calendar. So today is sociological, psychological factors of clothing, quiz number 1, redrawings, and the sketches, which we're going to talk about, presentation sketches, will be due based on your pencil sketches. So those are discussions that we're going to have, and then you can go on through all the weeks. Normally, if we were in face-to-face and I was giving you a paper syllabus, that would be handed to you on the first day. So sorry, now you're making you seasick. And that way you can look forward, because to upload everything into an assignment here in Canvas is very time consuming. As you can imagine, everything's time consuming these days. So these were your assignments for last week. Here's, and then here's what we have for this week. I'm just going to show you quickly the quiz number 1. So each question's worth 5 points.
Are you supposed to be mirroring your screen?
It's their short answer. Okay, so there's 5 questions, 5 points each. So it's open.
We can't see what
and
You can't see
once
what
it's
you're doing.
open, it's 120 minutes. You can, but once you should be able to answer all 5 questions. You can't go away and come back to it. So everything is open book. You can you can do anything you want with it. So it should be your own answers, and do answer in complete sentences and as concisely as possible. Be specific about your answer. Reread your question and make sure you've answered all parts of each question. So don't just answer the first part and go on to the next one. You need to make sure that you've answered all of the individual parts to get your full 5 points.
We can't see what you're showing us.
Questions on that?
Can you hear us? Hello?
Okay, and then we have another redrawing. These
Hello?
are exactly the same as always. Redrawing Greek and Roman.
Pamela, can
So
you hear
male
us
and
now?
female in Greek or Roman dress. Use labor book for the image and reference. This is a third set. Here's one male, here's one female. Now, I will tell you that this could also be Roman, unless you're, by looking at it, it is the way that the clothing is discussed, okay? So then I've put in vocabulary for Greek, Roman women, men, Greek, and Roman men. And there are other vocabulary things. And so that's available, and due, I think, Wednesday at midnight, and then you'll be all caught up. All right, let me stop this share. Where is that? There we go. Okay, just a second. Wait a minute. Did I share that, or I didn't share that? I did not share that.
Can you hear
Okay.
us?
Did you see anything?
Pam,
Okay.
can you hear us?
Well, that's helpful. Good to know. All right, I'm going to go down with questions. Kit,
Can you hear
your
me?
hand up.
Are you able to
You
hear
did
me?
not, and just a minute. I'm going.
Can everyone else hear me?
Kit, I
Now
can hear
can't even
you.
find the chat. I don't know what happened. to the screen.
everyone-
Yeah, I can hear you. All right.
Like I'm trying to call her right now.
Oh my god.
I can't seem to hear you. Yeah, that's correct.
No, you
Okay,
can't.
you're right. Let me just,
It's kind of awesome for a Monday, though. I love it.
okay, just a
I
second.
wonder
Let
if
me
like,
see what
this is
happened.
recorded, or if like it's still not recording what we're
We're
saying.
all out of
It's just
it.
recording person.
Thank you, Aspen. Okay, I don't know why that happened. Let me see. I guess I can go through. I will unmute every single person.
Hmm?
Just a minute.
Can you hear us now,
Yes.
Pam?
Okay, are you guys in control of your mute and unmute buttons?
Yep.
Yeah.
Just try to talk to me.
Hello.
Hello.
So Kit, try and talk to me now.
Hello.
Alright.
Can you hear
Hello?
me?
Okay, just a second, sorry. My bad. Okay, try it again.
Hello?
Hello.
Sorry. The
Hi.
fault is on my end. I had my volume down way too low because I was on a Zoom with somebody who was talking very loudly.
Oh, okay.
Have you ever done that? Like somebody's really talking loud and you turn down your volume and then I
Yeah.
forget.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now it's the next day. So I apologize for that. Thank you so much for letting me know. Let's start over. Okay. So I thought I had screen shared and I didn't, and you couldn't hear me. That's batting 100, isn't it?
It's okay. It's Monday.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? I have to say that I've had way too many meetings, but I go on Friday, we had what's called in service. Yeah, it's still recording. So I have in service, which was from 1 to 5. All faculty were required to attend. Yeah. And we had 1 hour presentation by the president and executive vice president. And then we had to go to workshops. And anyway, no breaks. So even it was very tough. I mean, everybody has a really tough time trying to make everything happen in this crazy format. Even though they're presenting a technical technique on how to do something in online, and they're not exactly making it work right. So I don't feel too bad, but let me take you first to the syllabus and show you what it's going to show you. Okay. So now you're seeing the syllabus.
Yes.
At the very bottom, you will see the weekly schedule. So you can click on that and it will open automatically. Okay. And it just tells you, what you already know, our redrawings, blah, blah, blah. And then it will give you our weekly information. Today we will be discussing psychological and sociological factors of clothing. You have quiz number 1, and I will show you how to find quiz number 1. Let's just see if we can do this. You tell me if you are tracking with me, because I've opened this screen, which may not allow us to go to modules. So you let me know. Are you seeing the module page?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I don't know how that happens. So here's the quiz, 25 points. It's 5 questions. And then you will go, let me see if I get on it, it shows me, let me show you the student view. So here it is, due the 9th at midnight, 5 questions. So you have it available. You have 2 hours in which to answer it. You can use all of your resources from any lecture notes, the Canvas page, the books, anything that you have. Then you just push this, you take the quiz. It is short answer. So please answer in complete sentences, concisely as possible. Reread your answer and make sure you've answered all the parts of each question. So I'm not going to push this button because then it counts me down to a timer, and then I end up with all these things. I don't know why I can't just preview it and be a human and not have it count down. But it will give you a countdown if you want that viewpoint. Josephine.
Yeah, so it's like a quiz on everything we've done so far.
No, it's on the syllabus and reading. So there's going to be a quiz on the syllabus, something about the syllabus. There's going to be a quiz on the reading that we've had and our discussions. It is not a comprehensive thing at all. And let's just see how it goes. I'd like you to, take it. Please don't worry about it. It is not 25 points out of the total points in this class is not many. And I just want you to make your best effort to answer the questions.
So how do we like study from it aside from like reading the syllabus?
You don't study
Or-
for it, you just open it up and take it. Actually,
Okay.
doing the quiz is part of studying.
Oh, you don't have to like read the syllabus or anything to like, you know,
We read the syllabus the first day in class. I mean, all the things along here, all the things on your navigation, you should be familiar with your Canvas course. So, am I? Okay. So anyway, I guess Diego, I'm just a little bit surprised because we went over that in class, and
I know we do. I was just wondering if we like,
you don't have
you
to.
know, we should go over it again and just so we remember everything that's on the syllabus.
If there's a question on the syllabus, you can just go open up your syllabus and look at it.
Okay, all right.
You know, I mean, there is no closed book. So, I'm probably being completely vague, right? So that's confusing. It's not a trick. And basically you have 25 minutes for every single question. So you can read the question and probably research through the entire Canvas page and your books and everything to answer the question.
Okay.
So there's a question on the Thin Man. There's a question on the organizational tools. There's a question on kind of some of the assignments that we've done. Then, so you guys are doing your assignments, so there should not be any problems. And if there are, just email me and then I'll figure out something. Okay. Sorry, any other questions on the quizzes? The quiz, single quiz, 5 questions, short answer. I feel like it's better than a multiple choice because multiple choice, you just select something. I don't know. Okay, then I go going to the redrawings assignment. Same as the first 2 redrawings assignments. This is the 3rd of 10. You noticed in the weekly that there are 11 sets of redrawings due, so one of them will be thrown out and we'll pick the top 10. It'll be 1 male, 1 female figure working in human proportion. So draw your body first and then draw your clothes on it on top. And then look at all the details in primary research for your historical source. So I expect you to look at other sources other than what I'm giving you. I do expect you to look at Greek and Roman, and you do have some in your book. So, because when you're working on a play, you have to costume more than 2 people, and you can't have all the men look the same, right? So when you're doing your 4 sketches for Thin Man, you should have a variety of looks and styles. And that's why you have the information on the vocabulary for Greek and the vocabulary for Roman. One thing I will tell you about the relationship between Greek and Roman is that often the way to explain it is the Greek had the idea first and is more refined, and the Roman tends to do everything more. So where Greek used 2 yards of cloth, Roman will use 4 yards of cloth. Roman is all about excess. They have a lot of excess in their clothing. They have excess in their lifestyle. They have excess in their hairstyles and all of their cultural traits. So you can think about that reflecting on the clothing style as well. So we go to chat. Okay, so yes, the recorded lectures should be on the Canvas site, and I think I still need to upload the one from Wednesday, so I will do that. It's because I've somehow the closed captioning element on YouTube, which is why we we have to convert the Zoom class into an MP4, and then the MP4 has to go into YouTube and has to be uploaded to YouTube, and then it can be edited there, and then closed captioning has to be an option to make the course completely accessible. So that takes a significant amount of time. So that's why I can't do it right after class, because it takes a few hours to get it all rendered, meaning to get it translated from a Zoom to a converted into an MP4. That takes some certain amount of time, and then uploading takes a amount of time, and then have it to be able to be videoed and captioned. So when you have, so does anyone know, Josephine has a question, does anyone know how to have the chat screen open on the side when I am screen sharing? So you guys can do that, right? You can pick your options of how you look at the top of your screen. So let me go to screen share and let's try and answer that question. Let me just screen share this, assignment 5. All right, so how do you, at the top of your screen, you should have screen options, and you should be able to look at participants. And if you open your participant window, then you can also get a chat window, and chat will show up. Is that tracking for everyone? Or have I said something that works for me and doesn't work for you all?
I just click the chat button and a separate window pops up. So
So do you see your chat button on the bottom of your screen if you need that? And then you can keep it, and it's sort of floating, so you can actually move it around your screen. Isn't that correct, Cara?
yeah. Yeah, and I have a second screen, so I move it over to the second screen so it never goes away.
Okay, well, I have a tiny laptop, so I have 12 screens open at once, and I squeeze everything to the little corners. So is anyone confused about that process? That's a really important thing to know.
Well, whenever you click screen share, it makes it full screen. So what I do is I hit the escape key and then I hit the chat. So
Absolutely. That's a very good point. So Aspen, I understand that it goes to full screen, but I never look at anything in full screen ever. So always you can hit that little bracket thing at the bottom, or just the escape bar, right? So let's try that again. I'll just screen share this same old boring page. All these things are really important to have. So if this goes to, you have an option up at the top, you can say it's 50%, 100%. You also can hit the escape button, and you can then have it, you can see your screen behind, right? And then also you have the option of how you're looking at the screen. So if you're in your participants window, let me go back. So up, you can have a view option, whether you look at gallery or whether you look at speaker. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? In my screen, it's on the top right. It says view, and you can either look at gallery or speaker. Okay. Okay, other questions about that? Sometimes your chat may say more. Okay. Okay, meaning when it's not full screen, the chat's on the whole right side. If you want it smaller, you can just get rid of the chat. Sometimes I do that because can be very distracting.
Yeah, I wasn't having a problem with it. I was just saying that you can only like move the small box chat around if it's full screen, because if it's not full screen, it's not a small box. It's connected to the side of the tab.
Oh, not for me. So that's very interesting.
Oh, well, I'm on a Chromebook, so that's probably just like only on here.
Yeah, and also if you're on your phone, it's a different thing. You have to swipe to get your chat, and it could be a button at the bottom, and you also have to do a different thing to talk. And then let's not talk about when you're on Zoom in your car, okay? Please don't do that. I have had meetings like that, though. It's very interesting. So either you have to be the passenger, or you have to have the passenger hold your Zoom. All right. So those are the things we're working on today. And would anyone like to share one of your sketches from last week? Take a look at them and think about it. And then while you're doing that, Sam, would you like to talk about the Thin Man rehearsal process in our Zoom environment?
Like the what we've been doing, or
Just sorry, hold on a second. Let me introduce you. Sam is the stage manager for the Thin Man. And so she is getting Thin Man from both ends. She's working on it here on the in the costume design site. And she is also working with the director very intimately on the costumes not the costumes, on the production. And then Kara is also working backstage on the hair and makeup design for Thin Man. So go ahead, Sam, and talk about how are your rehearsals, how are you meeting rehearsals? How is that happening?
currently we're either doing over Zoom. We're trying to do one-on-one right now, but we're going to do a read through for some of the sections tonight. And we're also meeting in person with 1 to 2 actors if they're comfortable with that. And since we are going to have a fully sound artist, we've been working a lot with her and what she's going to need to do the sound effects. And so we did that yesterday. So we have a huge list of props now that we're getting together, and a few, I actually have a few costuming questions, but that's for later.
Right, you put them in the rehearsal report, right?
Yeah.
So the way, this is another communication tool for production to costume and to all departments is through the rehearsal report. So when something comes up, I can't go to every rehearsal, and I can go to rehearsals if I know what's happening on that day, but I can't just go and hang around for rehearsals because I would not be able to get the clothes together and try and have fittings. So one of the things that Sam is doing is she takes careful notes of everything that happens, and that goes into the rehearsal report. Here's what we did today. Here's the questions that came up today, because we had a production meeting. And remember, we talked about production meetings last time with collaboration. And production meetings are where you bring forth any questions that pertain to the group. So to the whole team that is getting this production up on the boards, we say, up on its feet. And then one of the questions was, can we have a sound effects list? And sure, you can have a sound effects list. Sam went through the script and Katie, but as they rehearse then, and particularly with the Foley artist, the Foley meaning Foley sound is the vocabulary used to indicate a person who's creating live sound effects. And live sound effects are going to be created for this radio play, and that person will be on stage the whole time, so that when it says, Nora enters the room, we hear Nora's feet come in. So one of the ways that we communicate with each other, because it is important to have that information as soon as possible, and particularly for me, because costume storage is 8 miles away. It's not on campus. So it's not convenient to anything that perhaps if we were rehearsing on campus. But right now, since we're not allowed to be on campus with students, and everyone in a play is a student, and rehearsals are either over Zoom or they are, as Sam said, in person with masks, safely 6 feet apart, distancing outside. So, we can't actually transmit garments from one place to another. So it is very difficult, but it's very important that we have the communication completely open. So that's a very interesting thing. And Kara, why don't you talk about going to the read through of the Thin Man? Because everyone has read the Thin Man, our version, and Kara went to the read through. Sam was there too, but Kara has she went from a different perspective. And Sam, I think you've been involved in theater. And have you been stage manager before?
Yes, but the theater I worked at before was not this professional, so it's a bit different. It's a bit better.
So it's a learning curve.
Yeah.
And Kara has been involved as a professional makeup artist, but is this your first theater production, Kara?
Yeah, it's my first official start to beginning.
Uh-huh.
I've always kind of dabbled or been brought in for certain parts of theater production. So this is my first, from beginning to end. But what I thought was interesting is it was really fun and cool to kind of start to get to know the characters and the actors who are playing each character. But also it's the realization that there is such a partnership between costume and makeup and even the director, because if you're designing or doing makeup, you need to know what costumes putting on them. Are they wearing hats? Like we discussed beards, who's going to have beards, who's not going to have beards, and just getting the lay of the land and how it's going to work on a whole better helps you decide, you know, as a makeup or costume, like, are there quick changes? Are there needs for quick changes? How are they going to distinguish between, you know, one actor playing 6 characters, that type of stuff. And I found that really interesting and just kind of confirms and ties it all together.
Okay. So that's a great little summary. And also one thing that I actually quoted you on, Cara, was that you said that, wow, this might be great for the audience to see. So one thing that's different is this is how we are going to approach this, because this is actually happening later in our production season than normal. Usually we would be opening our first play around the first week of March for spring. And then the second play would be in April. And then the student one acts would be the last week of April, right before the finals. Each production runs for 3 weekends, so about 14 performances. And then we usually have spring break, and then we come right back and go into technical rehearsals for the second production. But because of our particular environment, and because everything is uploaded with heavy technology, we will be seeing the actors in person. They will be filmed, then that has to be edited all together, and nothing will actually be released for streaming until after, at the very end of March, I think. I'll have to look that up. So it's much later than usual. So we're creating a teaser, which will be a touch of everything about the production, so that we can send that out to our audience just for maybe 8 or 10 minutes and 1 minute of each different department doing different things, like, oh, here's the dog that we're going to make into the puppet, and here's how we're making it into a puppet, so that the audience has in contact with us. So I just wanted to let you know that it'll be a really interesting discussion. Hold on a second. Clement, what's your question?
Oh, my question just, I joined the audition. Of course, I fell. Is there any way I can take part in the play?
Oh, you mean you auditioned for The Thin Man?
Yeah, of course, I fell.
How could you be involved in it?
I want to join the play, but I don't know, like, maybe I can do some backstage or, other part. I just want to take part in, so I can have some experience. So,
and
no idea.
You're in China, right?
No, I'm in Boston.
You're in Boston. Okay. So, okay, sorry, I don't mean to embarrass you, but I didn't hear back about fabric swatches. I think I heard from everyone else. So everyone has gotten them mailed or they've picked them up. And so I'm not sure what you could, let's go offline and we'll talk about this in a minute. But what you would like to do is be involved in it, but you need to be involved from Boston. So have you taken the stagecraft class with Ben Kropp?
No.
Okay, because that's an option of how you can get involved that way. Otherwise, I'm trying to think of how you could be. Just a sec. Whoops, sorry about that. I'm trying to think how you could be involved from afar. Sam?
If it would just be, I can just take your contact information and then I can talk with Ben or the team and get back to you on that if you'd prefer.
Yeah, of course, but yeah.
Because over Zoom it is pretty hard, and then in filming we can't. We have to make sure we know how many people can physically be at the theater.
Well, and he would
So-
be able to be at the theater because he's in Boston.
Yeah.
So it would be something that would need to be either research oriented. So it could be, for example, if there's some really bizarre sound effect prop that needed to be researched for authenticity, that might be something that could happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
So
don't
Sam,
know
can you give
that.
me your email or on the chat?
I'll send it in the chat.
Sorry, I'm trying to get my phone off because somehow I don't know why Siri thinks I'm talking to her.
So, Mrs. Sean, do you need my address or something like
Can
that?
you please that was a request from last week. You need to email it to me so that I can mail this to you.
Oh, can I email you now?
Yes,
Thank you.
you can always email. Email's always open,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It
thank
was
you.
yeah, it was actually. And then has anyone else not accommodated the swatches, because we'll have a project on that next week.
I don't have them yet. I'll try to get them soon.
Okay, Diego, do you want to pick them up from me? Or do you want me to get you a set?
I'll ask my mother first if she knows any place, because she's the one who would probably know like any places that would like sell them or anything
Okay,
nearby.
so hold on.
And,
Let's make it, I'm trying to make it easier for you. And this is a thing that I love to work with, and it's important. So this bag has over 50 swatches, and it'll be difficult for you to get those at a fabric store, and I don't want you to have to go to an expense. So if you want it to be mailed, just send me your address and I'll mail it over to you.
okay, I'll email you.
And then anyone else who has said that they would pick them up, and many people, Pam was so excited because I had the makeup class do something and no one picked anything up. So she was thrilled. Oh no, they've come today. Several people already came today. So if you're picking it up, she is here from 10 to 5, Monday through Friday. Okay?
I haven't got them yet, but I think.
Okay, I need to take a small break so that I can respond to people individually via text. So just give me a second here because I can't do two things at once. So just take a less than a 5-minute Thank you so much. I can't respond in depth to chat questions by and talk to you and be present at the same time. So let me just thank you for let me take that time. Okay. So any other questions about swatches? The swatches, while they are fabric, okay, may be compiled of a variety of things. You may not actually have the exact fabric piece that you need. What are some things that you could do instead? What is something that you could use? So let's say I need let's say I need green corduroy. Does everyone know what corduroy is? It's a fabric that has a
Yeah.
vertical rib like this.
And it's like lining on it. Yeah.
So there's pants, you know, that are made out of corduroy. They've got these lines that go in the fabric like that. They're in the fabric. So how, what would I do if I don't have a piece of green corduroy? What is something that I could do to represent that?
Find something similar to it.
So what would that be?
Some other something with a similar texture. Or,
Well, if
So-
you want specifically green corduroy, you could possibly like use like a combination of different swatches. So you could use like if you had the exact green that you wanted, but it was not corduroy, then you could have that green, but then be like, and if you had a piece of corduroy, but it happened to be like, I don't know, black corduroy, then you could just have both of them be like this color, but with this texture.
So like this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So it would look like this color, this texture. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would really help so that you could actually see something like that. What if you have no fabric? What are you going to do?
I just had a quick question.
Yes.
If you have like a shirt that is in the right texture, can you like put that on the side of the, if I'm gonna take a photo of like the redrawing, can I just put that on the side to just show the
Graph of the shirt, of the piece of the shirt, and put it on the side and say, this is what I'm going to match.
yeah, so I don't have to like cut my shirt.
That's correct. So you can take a photo of a piece, photo of fabric, right? Yes. And what else can you do?
You can
Those
be
are all really good ideas.
you can be extremely detailed as you explain exactly what you want.
So written description. You're saying written description. Now this is hard because as we talked about, everyone sees color differently. So that's a really tough thing because when you say, even if it's this red of a certain kind of cherry, of a Bing cherry, it still will give everyone a different kind of idea. But you absolutely can do written description. What about finding a photograph of it online and using that, of just the fabric? You could do that. And then there are fabric stores that actually have swatches available online. Let's see if we can find one. Everyone look right now. And then I'll show you one, okay? Just look up fabric online. And see if you can find swatches. Does anybody have a swatch of something online yet? Look for a website that gives you swatches. Okay, and I would actually, you know what we'll do? This will be super helpful to everybody. let's put them in the chat and then you'll have them. And we can see if we can find swatches. So I'm going to have, just a second, that's not what I wanted. Okay, so let me just go here and I will have you screen share. Okay, does everybody have one? I see Aspen's already put one in. And Cara. So I'm gonna click on Cara's and then I'll screen share it for you. So you can see what her fabric store is, okay? And this is actually a really interesting way to imitate and show fabric because you can actually get up close and personal with it. So here, of course, they always have to give you the million of ads. And then you can look at how close up you can see that fabric, and then you can see it far away. What kind of things do you think you could make out of that piece of fabric?
Nice coats.
Nice coats. Men's suiting, you know, looks like men's suiting. This design right here is herringbone. Remember, I talked about that briefly. This is 2-color. It's a woven design with this off-white, or possibly you see it as light gray with this kind of slate blue. So under fabrics, you can look for fabrics by color.
I didn't realize that this is upholstery fabric.
That's okay.
I was wondering why it was so expensive.
It's totally, whoa, no, expensive? That's doesn't matter. You have unlimited budget.
Nice.
So, you know, that's fabulous. And you should know that when you're looking at Schumacher fabric, aquamarine at $173 a yard, that
wow.
This is really what costumes are made of. Or look at this. That's why things look so fabulous in the movies. You know, if they're making an 18th century dress with this fabric, then you get that all over print that you see in the history books. And this is why you don't want to sample, because they're $5 a piece. And of course they're $5 a piece because it's $200 a yard, right? So that's a very good example, but you could actually take this and, you know, maybe it would let you move it to the side and you could then have a swatch, okay? So my fabric store, and you guys are listing some really incredible fabric stores, but I'm going to give you a couple fabric stores that are ones that we use as costume designers in Los Angeles. So let me get my screen up for that. And this is one called F&S Fabrics that we've used for decades. And it starts with F&S Fine Designer Fabrics. It gives you a few little sketches. So that's who they're catering to, the trade, but public can go in there, absolutely. Go to fabrics. You can go to fabrics and you can look for categories by fiber quality, okay? So silk, wool, cotton and quilting, linen, imported lace, novelty, velvet, bridal, trimming and ribbon, which is also really amazing. And let's take a look at one. What do you want to look up? What kind of fabric shall we look up? Shall we try and find corduroy? Well, let's see, it should be cotton. They're going to show us mostly, look at all these quilting fabrics. This is, I have to say, I'm sorry to tell you this, but when quilting started overcoming the world, so many of the cottons went to this, like, look at this rainbow color. And then this is all different prints. They're 100% cotton for quilting. And you can look at these up close, but you might get, oh, I want to go back to that for a minute. You might get an idea of a color palette by even just looking at the fabric store. When I posted the color information, you can see that this is arranged rainbow. See, it goes yellow to orange to red with a little blue to more of a blue, purple to blue. Right? So it can give you an idea of how you might want to look at things. Colors that are next to each other on the color wheel are called analogous. So, you know, it's better if you can get just one swatch and you can see what a swatch is. So let's see if we can go back. Let me see if I can go back and look at a swatch of something.
Sorry, Pam. When did we need the swatches? Was it on Friday?
I'll just a second, and I'll. That would be on your weekly. I think it's next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday. Let me. I don't have that memorized. So, can you make a Google Doc with swatches and add links? Okay. So if you're adding a link, I'm not going to be able to see it unless I click the link, and then you're going to upload it, and then I'm going to have to click the link. It's better to put the swatch on the page. So put your swatch on your page, and then whether it's a Word document or some other kind of document, and then put it in, or the photo of it, or the digital rendition of it. Now, if you have these swatches, use these. Okay, this is if you don't have swatches, what can we do? No, I'd like a physical page of swatches. You can put it digitally together, but if you're showing me a digital copy or you're showing me a copy of this on a page, this will upload better than a photograph of this. That's why I'm being so sticky about that. Okay. I'm trying to have you avoid cut and paste. Cut and paste doesn't work in our field because we have to work with human bodies. So everything is hands-on and everything takes way more time than you think. So, and basically any way you can figure it out, just try doing things. You don't have an assignment yet, so don't worry about it. It's just, I wanted to go through this to say, what can you do if you don't have what you need? And here's what you can do. Everything you just did, perfect. Pivot, think about, what can I do? I need this thing. Is there some way that I can get it, that I can represent it, that I can show it? Because we are in a visual medium and we need to see what things look like. Is there a photograph of somebody wearing that kind of suit, and I can zoom in on that and I can find the fabric piece of it? So actually let's look at your fabric, Josephine's fabric I'm going to look at. So this is Fabric.com.
Yeah, I just clicked on something random.
Yeah, it's random. And then you can see if there's other fabric types. So it's very important. Just let's go through these and you can just take a look and say, okay, I'm going to look at, Fabric.com, and here's this. And then look at fabric type. You can look at, they have it by theme, hilarious. So solid. And then you'll see solid fabrics. Okay. Kona cotton. And now you can see these prices are much cheaper, $6.25 a yard. It's always by the yard, okay? A yard is 36 inches in the United States and roughly just under 3 inches under a meter. So this may also be a very interesting thing. Let's see if they actually have corduroy in here. Look at that. They have 72 corduroy samples. And then if we zoom in on this, you can actually see here is one kind of green corduroy. So that would be a fairly good way to represent exactly what we were talking about if we said we needed green corduroy. And you can still do a sample by saying, here's corduroy, or here's what I have in this color, but here's what it could look like. There's a different color of green corduroy, okay? So it's a really good way to use the tools that we have at hand. Another, wide wale, 8-wale corduroy refers to a wale is this hump. So they're referring to 8 per inch. So if we go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, it would be 8 wales per inch, okay? So fine wale is 21 wale next to it. You can see that is massively smaller, right? So that would be different. Only 20 yards left in stock. So you've got really great resources digitally for fabric swatches. And that's why I wanted to do this little exercise. I think it's really important to don't let obstacles get in your way. See, how can you make that an opportunity? How can you make an obstacle an opportunity? That is really everything that we're about in theater and everything that we're about, particularly with costume. Because, for example, right now, as Sam knows, we can't meet in person. I don't even have permission to see anyone in person, and they can't come to the campus, so I can't do fittings. And yet we're supposed to start filming in like 2.5 weeks. So, you know, what are we supposed to do? Okay. Always think about this. If this is something that's getting in the way, is there a way to get around it? Okay. So is there a way to get around it? Now, what did you guys think? That was helpful, wasn't it? To see all those, everybody has a lot of different swatch options here. And I would say try to go to upscale fabric stores. The fabric stores that are, that those upholstery ones that give you the $200 a yard, those are things that you probably would never be able to afford to buy. Or if maybe you need to make something with sequins. Now that sequins can be machine made, it's not like having to buy a 200-yard piece of fabric where they were all hand applied. So that's something that has changed in the last couple of years. So just think about that kind of thing. And now we're going to switch and pivot to, let's talk about clothing. What does it mean? Why do we consider the sociological and psychological aspects of clothing as a designer? And of course, we always talk about this in reference to a character. We are not doing it for the mass public. Everything is related to character. We have a common ground because we have a play that we've written, that we've read. All of us have read The Thin Man. Some of us maybe more in detail than others. Sam's probably read it way too many times by now. So, but let's just think about that. And we can pick a character to discuss. We know our two main characters are Nick and Nora, and I'm going to take that out of the equation for now. Let's pick one other character.
Asta.
Let's not pick Asta.
Dorothy.
Dorothy. The reason why we're not going to pick Asta is for this exercise, I think it might be a little too tough, Diego. So Dorothy. What do we know about Dorothy?
She's wealthy.
She's wealthy. First of all, what is her status in the play? What kind of character is she? Is she a major character or kind of a supporting character?
More supporting.
Supporting. Okay. And so we kind of have a where she is in the play, right? And she's wealthy, so we know that. And we know that why? How do we know that?
Well, from context, her mother is very wealthy and her dad makes the big bucks, and assumably.
And what does her dad do?
I actually don't remember what his job was.
He has money, and her dad, Wynot, who is murdered, right? And he is he's an engineer, right? Isn't that right, Sam?
What was it?
Isn't Wynot an engineer?
He's an inventor.
Inventor. That's why I think he's an engineer. Okay, so he's an inventor, so he makes money. That's shocking as an inventor. So, you know, maybe you saw that movie about the guy that made intermittent windshield wiper timing, right? You guys all have that. You turn on your car, you can make it go like this, make it go slow, you can make it go. So somebody invented that. That guy didn't actually get money. He had to sue to get the money because somebody took that from him. So she has money. What are the sociological aspects of Dorothy other than she has money? What kind of a personality does she have?
She seems a little bit faint-hearted, just slightly. Like I feel like I mean, she's able to ask Nick to help, which is definitely a big step. But also, it feels like she's kind of susceptible. Yeah, she's timid. She's
A
susceptible
little
to
timid. Yeah.
Timid, yeah.
I
timid.
do feel she's like emotional because certain scenes she does start crying and stuff, and when something happens or
So she's emotional, so that and maybe that means she kind of wears her emotions on her sleeves, we say. She has this sort of like maybe she's slightly teary-eyed or something like that, okay? So she's a little fragile as a human, and that might be because she has these two superpower parents. And this one, the dad, we talk about a lot. He's like not in the room, but he's always present. And the mom is a force when she comes in, right? So hence the daughter might be a little bit in awe of her parents and not really quite knowing how to respond. So psychologically, she's been a bit tamped down, perhaps.
been sheltered.
And sheltered. So that's two separate things, right? So she's been maybe not had complete freedom. She's been sheltered, which is slightly different than not having freedom. So let's put those are both excellent. Sheltered.
When I think of Dorothy, I kind of, and like her parents, I feel like they're kind of like helicopter parents, but like, I mean, I feel like her dad maybe is like a little bit more far of a helicopter parent, but I feel like Mimi would definitely be like, oh, I'll just buy that for you, honey. Like, oh, like I'll just throw money at it. Like, don't worry about it. So like, I don't think Dorothy's actually had to work for something.
So her needs are satisfied.
Yeah.
And her desires are as well. Right? So she doesn't have any wants. She's not really sure. That's what creates this timidity. She's not really sure what to do in this situation because she's never actually been in that situation of having to ask for something. Right? Anything else regarding her psychology? So we have her parental upbringing. What kind of school did she go to? What do you think?
100% a private school.
1% private school.
Probably a Catholic private school, to be honest.
Okay, where do you get Catholic from?
Typically, I mean, Catholic private schools, specifically Catholic all-girl private schools, tend to be a lot richer, and I feel like that would go with the sheltered life, because just because it's a private school, if it's a Catholic private school, speaking from personal experience, it gets they try to shelter you even more if you aren't from like a middle class background. If you're from like a higher economic background, then like they coddle you essentially.
Okay. So Kit, you're bringing up two really important things. One, you're referring to your own personal experience, and that's a way to get into the play. What is there in this play that's something I can hold on to and try to see it, because everyone's always seeing it from your own perspective. You cannot avoid that you're seeing it from your own personal focus, which also includes all your own biases, right? So you're using that, which is excellent, because this is something I have firsthand experience with. I'm going to say it could be this kind of a school, okay? So then you need to back up and say, are there any religious icons, iconography, words, or inferences in the play that would lead me to this idea? You can just look at Dorothy and just look at what her parents say to her. I'm not asking you to do it right now or to justify it. I'm just saying that's one thing that you'd want to do when you're making that kind of a statement, and think about that in terms of Dorothy. And Josephine, any other hands? Question?
Yeah, I was wondering, I don't really understand how Dorothy is timid. Can you like explain that? Because I don't feel like she is.
Okay, how do you feel like she is?
Well, I feel like when she's asking Nick for help. I feel like that is not timid. That is like more like she's taking her a lot of like, how do you say that?
Is she being bold? Is she being really straightforward and upfront?
Yeah. Straightforward and upfront. Yeah, because I feel like Nick also had didn't work with that anymore. He had retired, right?
Yeah, but she
So-
doesn't know that. She knows that her experience with him is that
Okay.
Whenever you're
hold on.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Somebody's
Sorry.
on him.
Sorry.
That's okay. So her experience with Nick is that he had worked for her father. She doesn't know that he's retired. That's outside her knowledge, right?
Okay.
So it's also important when we're looking at a character to realize, what do they know from what is their past life before the play, and then going forward, what do they know? So that would be a different interpretation.
Can
And
I
you're welcome
add?
to have- Go ahead, Sam.
Okay, so doing background research, there's this thing that keeps popping up in the play, which is everyone has either had an affair or has some relationship with Nick Charles. So Dorothy has, in like the movies and the previous scripts, Dorothy has a huge crush on Nick. Would that be taken into account for like costume design?
Well, so there's a couple of things about that. That might be something that the director wants you to take into account. That is making an assumption of prior knowledge. Basically, you would be leading the audience. If you choose to design from that perspective, you'd be leading the audience down that particular road of, we're going to show, now we're getting really into the psychological portion of it. We're going to show Dorothy as a ingenue, a young girl with a crush on an older man. And I don't think that's particularly in our script, although we do have what would, if we limit ourselves just to our script, just to our dialogue, what would indicate that in our script? Anybody think of anything that would indicate that Dorothy may have had or may have a crush on Nick?
Well, I think in the beginning when they first meet at the restaurant, it's really awkward. And he's like kind of hinting like everybody wants him or she wants him. And she's like fumbling like, no, my fiance's over there. I mean, that's what pops out to me.
So the first meeting is awkward. What else?
He even said during that meeting, he was like, yeah, you can stay if you explain your presence to my wife.
Okay, so.
But he also he acts like, or he doesn't know her because she says, I thought I recognized you, and then she introduces herself. So isn't that they don't know each other?
So Nick is somewhat hesitant, right? Because he doesn't recognize her. There's an awkwardness. And she can immediately point him out. So that shows that she is more interested in him, right? And has probably less experience, and he is more experienced. He also is governing that by letting her know that he's married. And she says, well, here's my fiance over here, okay? So then they immediately both indicate that they are otherwise taken. But there's one other big indicator here in our script without having to go to any other script. It's Nora's response, right? What does Nora do? And the comments that Nora makes regarding Dorothy when she comes in, that gives you an idea, a fuller picture of Dorothy. So I think Dorothy is a little bit timid, and that might be that because she has had this memory, and everyone knows that when you're remembering something, it may not be exactly accurate. So she may have made him better looking or more important, or like she wants this problem solved. Her dad is missing. So there's an emotional thing there's a void in her life and she wants him to fix it. And he has had that experience before. You know, he's fixed things for their family before. So she's kind of relying on that. And then if you put in a slightly sexual undertone of a crush due to this awkwardness, and also thinking about the time period in the 30s. So has a fiance, she's going to get married, unlikely in her circumstances, sheltered, her overbearing parents, she probably always had a nanny, you know, that she has been with this guy alone very much, right? So her experience is limited. So she's looking forward. She has a fiance. That means she has a wedding date. It means she has a ring on her finger. It means that they're marching down towards this path, and that creates anxiety if you don't know what's going to happen, both on a physical level, what's going to happen, on an emotional level, how am I going to attach myself to this person and away from my parents. So there's all this stuff going on inside of her, and the fact that her father's missing, and she wants Nick to fix this. So that's where she is. So Josephine, you know, good idea to say you don't necessarily think she's timid, but I think we can't just give her a superficial touch to that, okay? So given that, this complexity of her character, then what would that look like? And we need to probably put that into present day. Let's think about, what does present day, not completely confident, but willing to go out and ask for specific help from someone who has a past, you have a past with, and who can possibly, you believe, fix something. What would you do if you're going to meet that person? Do you think she went there by accident? How did she actually find him?
I think there's two possibilities, that she actually did stumble upon him at like the hotel, and she actually was just there with her fiance, just like for a good weekend or something. But on the other side, it could be like the thing that like Josephine was talking about, like maybe she was a little bit more bold. Maybe she like kind of hunted him down a little bit, or like maybe she spotted him in the lobby and it was like, I need to follow him to where he's going so I can like actually talk to him.
Okay.
So could be either way.
Thing that we have to determine before we know how she looks is it accidental or is it intentional? I mean, certainly the actor's going to have to determine, is it accidental or is it intentional that she's going up to him? Does anyone have their script? Well, never. I was going to say, what's the first thing she says? Okay, we don't need to get completely into that. But if it's accidental, let's talk about what is her goal and what is she doing exactly at that moment in that place? What is she doing? Let's say it's accidental, but what is she doing in that place?
Wouldn't she be eating?
She's probably arrived with her fiance, right? She wouldn't have come by herself. She is going to be eating. It's later in the day. Is it lunch? 6 martinis, is that lunch? It could be.
That's dinner.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of thought so, and I can't remember if we talked about that in our production meeting, exactly what time of day it is, because that would affect what they're wearing for sure, especially in the 30s. So let's say it's accidental, but she is going to a fancy restaurant, a fancy meal with a fiance. So how's she going to look? And then if it's intentional, she's going to all of those three things, a fancy meal with her fiance in a fancy restaurant, and then she's going to meet this older man to ask him a favor. Okay, so that creates an extra layer. How is she going to look? Let's just take the accidental. Fancy meal, fiance, fancy restaurant. Ideas.
Fancy dress.
Nicely dressed. Okay. Nicely dressed.
Maybe
If
like a
we can-
nice shawl, like a nice nice like overcoat or something. Like not as over the top as Mimi, but like I feel like when you go like for like a fancy dinner, at least in those times, it's like they have a lot of different layers to really show their affluence.
So yes, okay, layers for affluence. Now, one thing is, I just put layers of money. One thing is though, by the time you're at the table or in the dining room, you would have removed your outer layers. You would have removed your overcoat. But in this time period of the 30s, you would have kept on your gloves. You'd still have your handbag and you'd kept your hat on, but you would have taken your coat off. So just something to keep in mind. What else would we want to consider here?
Jewelry?
Sure. That's a way to show money, right? We can, she would definitely have on some significant pieces of jewelry, whether that's a neck piece or some kind of an earring that shows wealth or an heirloom, some kind of thing. She's intentionally getting dressed even for the meal with her fiance. And she's getting dressed knowing that she will be seen by others. And she has this status of her family background to uphold when she's in public.
Maybe a hat, like, because usually since it's wealthy people, like especially during that time period, wore hats. Like,
Yes, she would definitely have on a hat. She's definitely going to have on a hat, handbag, and gloves, and then some kind of a very nice. When we say nicely dressed, Sue, what does that mean?
Well, I'm thinking maybe like a real trim black dress, long dress.
So it would be some kind of a dress, right?
Yes. You can wear trousers in those days, right? I mean pants.
Trousers would not be worn for that kind of an event. But I will tell you something that has changed recently, which is really, this is really a psychological thing to think about. Is it used to be we would always tell costume designers, and I would tell customers that work for me, and I still do, dress up. Because when you go to any kind of a retail store, let's say you're going to Neiman Marcus, or what's the fanciest retail store you guys can think of? Okay, we're going to go to the Giorgio Armani boutique in Beverly Hills. Does that give you an idea of sort of a fancy environment?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to go to the, I have a big budget. I'm going to go to the Giorgio Armani boutique. I'm going to buy a tuxedo for my leading male actor. That's going to cost about $5,000. So I have a big budget. Now, if I am a truly, in this day and age, right now, 2021, a bona fide wealthy individual, I can go in there in my ripped jeans, right? But I'm not that person. And I always tell my customers, go in nicely dressed, because there still is a slight prejudice towards how people look, especially if they are not known. If you are really wealthy, the Giorgio Armani people know who you are. They know who you are because you've been there before. They know who you are because of your family name. They know who you are because you've been in the newspaper. You know, or it's just like who can be seen. But if they don't know who you are, they need to have trust and bona fide understanding that they're not wasting their time with you. So this whole thing of your appearance is, people do judge you by how you look, right? Even though we want to say they don't, you are judged by how you look. And that is true for a character and an audience in a play. So the first time the character comes out, and this is Dorothy's first appearance in the restaurant, and she goes up to Nick, she references her boyfriend, her fiance, who may or may not be over there. So we are trying to convince our audience that she is all the things we've talked about. She is wealthy. She comes from old money, not just nouveau riche. She is, has been taught how to be well put together. So her hair is coiffed. She actually has a hairstyle, not just like my hair is like this. There, you know, you used to never see women on the red carpet with just loose hair that is sort of this messy look. That came about 20 years ago. Nah, it came in the 80s. So probably 40 years ago. But there was a style to the hair. There is an intentionality to the makeup so that she has a certain kind of lip. The lip is carefully shaped. There is from head to toe, a put together feeling of each item is intentional. So that the audience knows that this is somebody that has an education, that has had schooling in etiquette and social graces, that when they come out, they are a complete and even if they're not as confident as you might be, they have behind them the support to show confidence. Okay, so and then you need to consider that person, Dorothy, in the relationship to the rest of the play. How does she look compared to Nora, who we see later? Well, one thing, what would be the first thing you'd say about her look compared to Nora's look? They both are very put together. They both have a lot of experience with that. They both have a lot of money. So that part's equal. But what is not equal?
Age.
Age. She's younger. Dorothy's younger. We need to make sure the audience knows that she's younger. What does that imply? Less experienced. And maybe how would that be visually evident?
Maybe some lighter colors that like show youth.
So that's certainly one way.
Or also like maybe she does have nice jewelry, but like it's not like the refined pearls or like lovely brooches. Maybe it's like something.
Maybe the jewelry is more fun.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
Probably even the clothing. They're both wealthy. Hers may not be on the same level as like Nora. Yeah.
In sophistication. So she might be just less sophisticated. How does that show?
Also, like the hair might be a little bit like, yeah, it can be put together, but it doesn't need to be like all like higher up. Like something that I've noticed like is if your hair is like shorter or like in a more like tight hairstyle, then it tends to be like, oh, you're more mature, you're older.
Not a helmet.
Yeah.
She is going to have short hair. Short hair is very popular at this time. And actually, you either had short hair or you had braids around your head, basically. But her hair will maybe be slightly more carefree. Maybe lighter makeup or maybe less makeup. You know, maybe she has nice blooming cheeks. Her skin is going to be better. She doesn't need to be as made up. So she'll probably wear the same amount of makeup, but it won't seem as made up. But it will be less sophisticated. And that less sophisticated shows in the line. A line is maybe she has more frilly. She has more ruffle. She has more lace. Her trimming is lighter weight. Okay, does that all make sense to you guys? So when our audience, the second part you have to take into consideration, besides the character in relationship to the other character, is possibly different fitting. Maybe, well, I don't know, she's a fully matured adult, so her figure is going to be a certain way. If we were talking about Julia, that would be a different thing altogether, because Julia is a blonde bombshell, but she is older than Dorothy. So Dorothy is the youngest person on stage that we're going to see. Okay, so she is probably not wearing a tighter fitted garment than than Nora, because that would be more like Julia. That would be more like the bombshell. It would be a more fitted garment. A sophisticated person from a wealthy background would not want to be necessarily body revealing. There would be some revealing to the body, but not really. We don't want to ever imply that she was leaning over the edge like Julia does. Julia probably slept her way to the top. That's how she got to be Winans' secretary. Not that she slept with him, but she made her way all the way up. Could be short sleeve versus long sleeves. Like how much of the body are we exposing? What are we exposing? What about the neckline? Are we going to expose a deep neckline on Dorothy, or are we going to do that on Nora? Save that for her sophistication. So all of these things. But the second thing we need to keep in mind is, who is the audience? And this all works for the play. It has to work both for the play and the physical human that's going to play the character versus the physical humans that play the other characters. But who is the audience? Who is actually going to see the costume? So that's something you always have to take in mind. When you're going to a theater for the very first time, when you're working in a theater for the first time, it's a good idea to ask, who is your audience? And does anybody have an idea about what the theater going audience is like right now?
You mean right now, like in the pandemic?
No, not in the pandemic, because there's no theater audience right now.
I was like, well, it's empty.
Let's just say, yeah, boy, it's just like so vast. They're like, they could be anything. I love it. That was brilliant.
We'll be very cautious and
everyone will be very cloaked. It'll be very mysterious. We won't know what the audience is. Oh, that's perfect, you guys. We got to laugh about that whole pandemic thing. Okay, let's talk about, in general, if times were not in pandemic, and hopefully we will go back there at some point, what do you in your mind think of as the kind of person that buys a ticket to go to a play?
I kind of think of, so first of all, if it's a student production or like it's at a school, then obviously like students would be there. The family members of the cast tend to be there as well. But then there's also like a good amount of people of like an older generation that like have more leisure time, like maybe don't have to work on like the next day or something, and like during the week.
So let's think about this, the audience. Okay, if you're in academia, you might have, we have 14 performances. And we have 300 seats, 360. Okay, so how many seats is that? I'll tell you in a second. I will get out my calculator. Unless somebody's done it first. Where are my quickly finger snapping folks there? So 14 times 360 is, let's roughly 5,000 people. Okay, roughly 5,000 people. Are we going to have 5,000 students come and see the play, even if it's at an academic place? No. Maybe we'd have like 200 students come. Because maybe the students that come are the theater students and then a few other students, right? Also, you know, at Santa Barbara, we have, at Santa Barbara Theater Group, we have season subscriptions that we actually sell. And we sell to over 1,000 people. They buy a 4-season play, a 4-play season. So that already is people who are spending money for that have a real conviction about being in the theater. And they do skew older. How many of you have gone to a play and when you look around the audience, you might be the youngest person in the room? exactly. So that can be, I mean, sometimes I even feel like the youngest person in the room. Colby, not anymore. Because Colby, you're just getting so aged. But older, maybe, you know, tending towards their 60s or something like that. And they often are going by themselves in a couple. So, you know, this, if you think about people in their 60s going to see a play that's set in the 30s, which is this play. Of course, they weren't alive then, right? That's after their time period. So you have to think, well, they're thinking about what they've ever seen from this particular time period based on movies, probably. They're not looking up, as I did in the D encyclopedia, under dress to see what people wore, because only lunatics do that like me. So, you know, you might want to think about, what is your audience? How are they going to look at this character that we've created of Dorothy? And how are they going to interpret those things that you're bringing in to this visual for them to make a determination that we see Nick, we see Dorothy come in, and then we see Nora added into the group, and how do they see her? And you do see her in relationship to Nick and relationship into Nora. So that's the idea. Is first we discussed her psychological aspects, her sociological in terms of her status, her economic status, her educational status, where she is in the culture of the world. Remember, we're in New York City. There is a high stratus of social lights, people who really just like Nick and Nora. They just go to parties, they go to the resort. If you remember what Nick says, he's retired because of why? Anybody remember?
He's taken over Nora's like finances, kind of.
Why?
Somebody died.
Her dad.
Okay.
So Nora's dad is dead. So first of all, that gives you an idea of how old they might be, right? Old enough that the dad died somehow. And he had amassed quite a lot of material goods. A railroad. Okay, now we're thinking Rockefellers. Hotels, now we're thinking Trumps. You know, other kinds of things. So they are very, very wealthy. So neither one of them has to work, which is interesting why Nora keeps pushing him to take the job. And you have to sort of think about, why does she do that? It's not of necessity.
She's bored.
Excellent. She's bored. She wants him to work so she can tag along and get in on the action, right? So that's a really good point about their dynamic. But he doesn't have to work. So they go to resorts. They go on cruises. They are the very rich leisure class. So he doesn't have to wear a business suit. How do they show their wealth? By being understated, perhaps. Maybe she doesn't need to wear a fur, but maybe Mimi, Dorothy's mom, does, because she's not quite as secure, not quite as wealthy. So if we put the wealthiest people at the top of the list in this particular thing, we would put Nick and Nora at the top.
But Pam,
Yeah.
in those days, in the 30s, people didn't live as long as we do now.
Sorry, you cut out for a moment. Could you say that again?
Didn't live as long as we do now. So, you know, could be in their 40s, I'm saying, because if people didn't live into their 90s like we do now, in their 30s, live quite so long, my feeling.
Right. So you're going back to, how old are Nick and Nora?
Yes.
And how old would they be if her dad died? Well, let's say her dad
40?
died at 60 and
Okay.
she was born when he was 25. That would make her 35.
Okay.
Right? So you can justify that however you want. You have to actually justify it based on your particular, you have to justify that based on your particular cast in your particular set of circumstances. So any last questions before or comments on this kind of idea of how you think about the character? Because all these things are visually going to go into the sketch. And from where your rough sketches are now, they will be more refined when you turn them in later this week. And you don't have to color them, right? And I'll give you another assignment of how you're going to transform the sketches that you turned in before into a more detailed look to make sure we included certain things. So questions on that, because we're going to take a little break and then we're going to come back and do a little drawing assignment with pencil and paper this time. You don't need your color media. Any questions? Okay, I don't see any in the chat and I don't see any. So let's just take 10. We'll come back at 11:23 and then we'll actually have 30 minutes. All right, take a break. So we will be spending the next 25 minutes working on drawing the hand, drawing the top side of the hand, taking your non-dominant hand and placing it beside your paper. So using some kind of proportionate incremental method of measurement, which we've established to be from the crook of the thumb to the edge of the thumb, then you can get a width of your hand, a width of your palm. So whether it's 1 1/4 times the length of the thumb, and just basically put in a couple of stick figure place markers so that you're identifying these things. Note that the hand, where the shape of the palm is in relationship to the fingers. Okay, so it has this kind of trapezoidal shape. And where does the thumb go? And you can just kind of do a stick figure feel for that. Oh, maybe I need to have that come out further and bring my palm in more. Okay. So you're going to do just a sort of a stick figure just to start very lightly so that you can then draw around that shape to figure out what you're looking at. And then what is the shape of the finger? How would you characterize the shape of the finger? What is that going to look like? Well, two kind of vertical lines for each with a rounded top. So you can start with a vertical line with a rounded top. How far down does it go? The set of knuckles that happens in this opaque area. So at the bottom, there's another set of round knuckles. And how are you going to characterize that? Do you draw these bones that are here? And you may not be able to see your bones, like I'm very bony. And I do have kind of extraordinarily long fingers, but that's just depends on what you have. What do you have? So drawing these two straight lines with a rounded top, and then you can deviate from that if you have wider knuckles. And what does that look like? What does the thumb look like? And the thumb, if you're drawing the back of the hand, the thumb is at a side to that. The thumb is going to be at a different relationship. So you're looking at the profile of the thumb compared to the finger. So look at that and try and sketch that into the hand. And then you can just do those round things. Just kind of figure out what the round, just do a loop if that's where you're comfortable. And then we can work from there. We can work from there to figure out what are the details then. And you have sort of these knuckles that are in this area. What does the finger look like in between the two fingers? How do they relate to each other? And then as you get your hand sort of established, just in proportionate detail, you can look carefully and think, okay, now I'm going to measure and see if I have my measurements somewhat accurate. Oh, that seems a little long. I'm going to take that down a little bit. Maybe that's a little too broad there. It needs to be broader here. And just kind of look at your proportionate measurement and see how you're doing. Does it make sense? Is this 1 1/4 of what this is? What is the shape of the palm? It actually comes in and then out again and has more of a curved shape to come down to the wrist. I'll draw my wrist in, kind of right here. So then get your proportionate shape and get your outline kind of working together. Maybe you want to include these little bit of bony effect here. I'll tell you an interesting thing about that is that is replicated in gloves. So these lines show up in gloves because they're seam lines. Okay? Taking some time with that, taking some time with the hand. After you feel like you have your proportion lengthwise together, let's think about the proportion of width. What is the width of a hand? How can we identify what that is proportionately? Well, what is it, I guess, maybe in relationship of the thumb again to here? That's always a bit wider. The fingernails, yours may be wider or narrow. You know, there's a wide variety of things that happen. So now just let's look at one finger only. Pick your index finger. Just look at one. You're looking at one finger only. What are the things that you're noticing about that finger? From the top to the bottom, the relationship of the finger, where the web is in relationship to the middle finger. The knuckle, how the finger relates in the web to the thumb. Two straight lines, a curved top, and down the other side. Maybe you've abused your hands like I have, and this is my actually non-working hand, my other hand's worse. And you have a knuckle, the top knuckle, very bulbous, or maybe yours is very smooth. One time I had a hand model in my makeup class. That was really fun. What does this look like? If you do sort of a parenthesis, a slight parenthesis, it gives you some shape on the outside of a finger. So on top of the outside of your line, you can do a parenthesis. And then notice that there's where the bend is, there's sort of a sideways parenthesis. So a slightly curved top and a curved bottom. Same here. Where is the fingernail? What is the fingernail shape? Is your fingernail cut off so that you actually see the finger above the nail? Or do you have an elongated fingernail? Or maybe you have painted nails. What about the quick? The quick is this portion of the nail that's at the very bottom of the nail that can be hidden underneath the skin. And then if you have taken care, you would see that you have a half moon there underneath the skin of the nail. Do you have, like I do, a bruise, this white spot on your nail, and then you see the finger ghosting through the nail? So let's look at just the finger and making that finger as complete as possible. What about the texture? Some people have hair, some people have more dry or wrinkles. They have a scar, maybe. I worked in a factory with metal, so I have several cuts on my hands. So you may indicate those. And these bend spots are important. The shape of the nail. Is it cut? Is it jagged? Maybe you broke it. I did break one. I have a split in one of mine. So, what's happening with that? And now that we've been on one finger, we can add the second one and learn from what we learned on the first one and apply it to the second. Again, we can go up the finger, over the top, down the finger, create a parenthesis horizontally and vertically to give a feel for the knuckle. We're talking just line drawing now. We're not doing a shaded piece yet. We're just doing line drawing. Line drawing. Where about the top knuckle? Can you move your top knuckles without moving the others? What does that look like? Again, notice how it interrupts that straight line coming up and down the other side. The relationship to the other finger depends on if you have your fingers close together, but for this, we drew them slightly apart, so you should see part of the web in here. And then you can take that down into the hand and look very faintly at this, almost a slightly circular two pieces for this knuckle, and then the bone comes down from there. So not to get too far ahead, we're still on the knuckle and the finger, taking time to draw in the lines, taking time to draw the shape of the fingernail, taking time to draw the quick or the half moon. Does the finger stick up above the nail or below? What is the condition of the nail? Does it have any little blemishes in it? Is it completely neutral? And then once we've done that, we can look down at the rest of the palm and say, what extends beyond this? From top through the knuckle to not quite the wrist. The wrist is down here. Okay, so we're on that finger. And then when you get through with that one, go on to the next one. Are you noticing anything different about this finger than the middle finger? Can you tell which finger maybe has had more work or more abuse by just the way that you're drawing it and by the shape of the finger? This can be very expressive when you're talking about character and even character on stage. If you give somebody fake nails, dark red, the audience can see that. And the audience will have a response to that, particularly if that person is doing something like dialing a phone or holding a phone up to their mouth. Because once we get close to the face and the mouth, we're hyper aware of what's going on with the character. So if the phone is being held at the mouth, then we'll definitely see the fingernails. So move on to your fourth finger. What's different about that? The fourth finger is traditionally the weakest finger in the hand. Those of you who are piano players know your piano teacher said, okay, and then up, up, up with that finger. Get that one to independently work from the other ones. It's typically the weakest because it is not as tall as the middle finger. It is in between the outside finger and supported by the middle finger. And that's probably why it's selected to be the ring finger of something that you're going to wear if you are traditionally wearing a piece of jewelry indicating a marriage or something like that. It is a protective thing. So if you're going to put something on, an extra bump or a layer on this finger, it's probably more protected than one that's going to always open something, pull, unscrew, and compared to this finger. So how does this one differ from your other fingers? Is it less beat up? Is it thinner? Does it look about the same? And this might be a time, just put your fingers together and then notice, do they fit together? Are they not together at some point? Do they completely fit together? Do you have arthritis and they're still going around each other like this? So just a thought, and then open your hand and then take a look. Then before you go on to the little finger, just put your pencil down, stand up, and just do a little stretch. Take your arms out, put them up, look away from your page, shake your head. Breathe in and out. Move your head around, relax your shoulders. Take a minute of a break. And then sit back down. And then look at what you've done. Look at your little finger. And see what you can do. And see if this is a finger that can be drawn in the same way or slightly different. One way that we think about this is think of an ant crawling up this side of your finger, over the top, and down the other side. Trying to make a continuous pencil stroke so that it would be continuous. And then attention to your knuckle, to your top knuckle, and to your nail and your nail bed. Do you see that half moon? Give it a half moon. If you see it, draw in that semicircle and the tip of the nail. Then we can begin to address the thumb, which you see is seen in a very different way than the four fingers. These you see what we would call straight on. You're looking straight on at the finger, but the thumb is in profile. How much of the nail do you actually see? Just a tiny glimmer. And maybe it's just a texture difference. So you're seeing that different, but you're seeing the pad of the thumb, the curve shape of the knuckle coming down to the web. Maybe just a little bit of a curved edge here for the knuckle. And how does that thumb go into the palm of the hand? And then take a check for your proportions. Here's my thumb. Here's my index finger. Here's my middle finger. Here's my fourth finger, the one that most closely matches, and my baby finger. What does that look like? Is there a line right here that you need to indicate? So if you were going to do fingernail polish on these, where would you put it here? Would you give a slight stripe on this side just to hint? Or would it be elongated so you'd see it just beyond the thumb? And then take the thumb all the way down so that it ends at the wrist, and the wrist is where you bend. And the wrist bone is just below the bend on the arm part. Okay, so if this is where I bend, the bone is here. So you draw it to the bend, and maybe that's indicated by a horizontal line lightly, and then you have a slight out shape of the wrist. Some things aren't going to be exactly as you see, but we want to really take a look at what we're seeing and see how we can represent that. So we've been on this project about 20 minutes. And you should be able to see a hand, and maybe you've never considered one object for that length of time before, to really look at how you can have that be the best representation of that hand possible. And then go to the back of the palm. And you can just do a line for each one of these bones. But you can see there's really, again, 2 lines for each bone indicated by shadow in between. So you could look at this, give me a line, and do a shadow in between. If you want to do that, you're going to take the side of your pencil and just go back and forth against that area so that you're seeing the bone in relief to the hand. So you can actually shadow in part of the nail and the nail bed so that you get the shadow of the knuckle. The nail has kind of a flat quality to it, maybe lighter and then darker as it goes through the shadow of the finger behind. And then very carefully with a sharp pencil, try and give a specific outline to the hand. I was hoping I had a different marker so that you can, now that you've been working in the sort of a light, maybe somewhat tentative way, you can give a better, clear outline to the actual hand, and you're going to shape what we see by giving an outline. And in this way, you will have what you can do with a sketch for a whole body, how you can lay the proportion of the body out, how you can look at the details of the body. Are they wearing gloves? Are they carrying a handbag? What kind of hat? And then once you get those firmed up, you can go in with either a sharp graphite pencil, that's just a regular pencil. You can go in with ink. You can do a very fine Sharpie and give some real nice crisp edges to that particular part or certain parts of the hand and certain parts of the sketch. Maybe you want to just indicate one of the wrinkles in the knuckle or the skin wrinkles, just one of the bones of the palm, just part of the nail. And we have 5 more minutes of class, and you can continue working on your hand. And Diego, I did not get an email from you yet, so be sure as soon as class is over, you give me an email so I can mail you the sketches and that we can.
Will do.
The swatches to you. Okay. And then remember the next Monday, we won't have a Zoom meeting. And also we'll be working with a new play. So I'm going to be sending that to you digitally.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Did you get my email?
I got it. Already addressed the envelope. I did it during the break. Thank you. So I'll send those out. I'd like to send those out today. I know that it took maybe 2 days to get to Vegas, so probably not much further than that to Boston. You should have it by, if I mail it today, you should definitely have it by Friday or earlier. And if it's coming closer, you could possibly get it by Wednesday. So otherwise, I'm planning that everyone else is going to pick theirs up. And as I said, Pam was very happy that many people had come to pick them up. Then when you get your swatches, you may need to iron them to flatten them because they have been kind of crumbled together in boxes. We have these 20 boxes that we allow students to look through. unfortunately, we had to make selections for you and then flatten them out to put them in an envelope in a plastic bag so then we could mail them to you. But anyway, do take time to iron them so that when you're working with them on your sketches, you'll have some nice swatches available. Okay. So you just have 2 more minutes of drawing and just keep looking at your hand. I'm sure there's something else you can add. Maybe something, is there something that you didn't notice yet about your hand? I noticed I have an ink spot on mine. So is there something that you didn't notice? Look again. Are your nails all even? Are they all the same? Usually nails are all different widths. So you'll want to take that into consideration.
Pamela, could I talk with you in like a breakout room if you have time?